Remember when Adesanya said this?
People don't understand this. Like they said, Israel has no knockout power. He hit Henderson Silva in the face clean. I'm like, you don't understand this. Me and him are playing this game. So when I hit him, I didn't hit him clean. I'm not trying to hit him where he is. I'm trying to hit him where he's gonna be.
Well, this isn't some cryptic ancient technique that he's talking about. What Izzy is talking about here is being able to recognize an opponent's defensive options and exploiting those patterns. The most common defensive option by far in MMA is maintaining or creating space. Maintaining or creating space between you and your opponent means being out of range of his attacks, and that means you're going to get hit less. And there are two ways to do this. The first and most common is just a simple step back, and the second is a step laterally. And these two are usually paired with leaning back to increase distance from oncoming attacks to the head. For the purposes of this video, we are mostly going to be focused on spacing and not the other defensive options like parrying, head movement, long guard, clinching, etc. However, those options too can be predictable and therefore exploitable. Let's take a look at this Figlak versus Hubbard sequence from their lightweight bout last April. Both fighters react to little feints but also to each other's movements. One comes forward, one goes backwards. Both maintain distance, which helps in reacting to oncoming kicks, punches, and takedown attempts. Both wait for the other to throw, either trying to block, trying to capitalize with a counter, or waiting for an opening. This is the typical ebb and flow of stand-up MMA, and both fighters' main use of defense is the space between them. Both fighters back up to avoid danger. So the question is, what do you do when you can't hit a guy because he keeps backing up?
Got a little riddle for you. How do you kill a guy?
The answer, unsurprisingly, is to overcommit, or what I like to call making up the space. Think about this. Every time you attempt a jab, your opponent simply steps back out of range and you hit air every time. Well, then he becomes predictable. So to take advantage of this, we take an extra step forward and then throw. Now we should be landing. Basically, we're accounting for the space that the opponent will create in meeting him at his future destination, a spatial read, if you will. And this is what Izzy is talking about.
We're just in the beginning part of space. We haven't even gotten to outer space yet.
Here is a lovely example of overcommitting from the same fight. Hubbard feints a knee or teep, getting a reaction out of Figlak seen as he steps back, and Hubbard simply moves with him, making up the space and lands a flush left hand just as Figlak's head settles into its new position. The leg feint acts as a tool to both get a reaction out of Figlak and to hide the step that Hubbard needs to make up the space that Figlak will create stepping backwards. Okay, so this seems rather foolproof. Why not overcommit every time if we know our opponent steps back? Well, we can, and in theory it should be effective. However, if our opponent picks up on our overcommitting, he can make an adaptation to nullify our new offensive option. Just as we realize that we can hit our opponent by overcommitting, our opponent can now predict our plan of making up the space and adapt by undercommitting, or what I like to call occupying space. Undercommitting is essentially throwing out a move that occupies space so that an opponent trying to enter that space gets hit or pushed back. This is best done with quick and rangy moves like a teep or a jab, and reach advantage helps tremendously. We can find both examples of overcommitting and undercommitting in Sean Strickland's fight versus Dricus du Plessis. Du Plessis is a fighter with a phenomenal blitz, which a blitz would be an extreme version of overcommitting. One of the reasons why du Plessis is so successful in most of his fights is because he takes advantage of his opponent's tendencies to simply back up out of trouble. He bull rushes in and doesn't stop until he hits something. However, in round 1 of the Strickland versus Dricus fight, Dricus has no success with the blitz, mainly due to Sean's strikes that occupy and control the space, stopping Dricus from coming forward. Here is a typical round 1 exchange. Dricus attempts to come forward but runs into the teep. The teep doesn't actually have to land to be effective. Here, Strickland throws the same teep just to occupy space and to stop any overcommittal blitzing from Dricus. Here's that same sequence again. The round continues in this fashion, and Dricus lands no clean strikes in the entire round outside of a single jab. Dricus gets a takedown at the end of the round after Sean fails to sprawl. Other than that, it was pure domination. Strickland threw 11 or 12 teeps, which is a rate of 1 teep every 25 seconds. After round 1, however, the fight would look much different. Dricus's blitz began to work. and Sean's defensive option of backing up, hiding behind his shoulder, played right into Dricus' hands, as the blitz makes up the space that Sean creates. In round 1, Sean doesn't have to backpedal as much as he does the rest of the fight. He keeps Dricus at his range and outstrikes Dricus with superior range and speed. So what changed? Well, it's not so much what Dricus added than what Sean took away. After round 1, where Strickland threw a dozen teeps, he went on to only throw 6 more teeps the entire fight. Sean lost his main tool of occupying space with undercommitted strikes that would have kept Dricus from rushing in. So literally, Sean's use of offense was his best defense. Watch as Dricus accounts for Sean's backwards movement, walking with him and throwing lurching punches in the direction that Sean is going. Also notice the differences Dricus makes from blitz to blitz. Sometimes he hides it with a level change. Sometimes he enters with a flurry off of the jab. Sometimes it's a classic fake kick that hides the step. The variety of entries makes it so that he won't get caught with a straight-up counter shot. Mix-ups in the blitz are vitally important to Dricus' game plan. He rarely approaches the same way twice and throws with a ton of power, which makes his opponents back up and shell up most of the time. It's not clear why Sean discontinues the teep after round 1. Maybe he fears the takedown and doesn't want his leg to get caught, even though Dricus doesn't make an attempt to catch any teeps. It remains unclear. Even Sean's coach, Eric Nixick, calls for the teep in between rounds.
If we just stay on our stick and lead the dance, don't forget about your teep. That was money in the bank. Watch your barriers when we start walking around here. When we get around the cage, he's going to start exploding on us, all right?
In round 5, Sean is on the front foot and pumps his jab, catching Dricus coming in, which occupies the space like the teep in round 1. But one thing is for sure, Sean on the back foot without the teep was losing exchanges due to Dricus' ability to read Sean's backtracking movement. Dricus even accounts for Sean's lateral movement by the fence by throwing sweeping kicks. This fight in particular showcases how important one minor adjustment can change the outcome drastically. A brief recap. If a fighter steps back too much, we can exploit by overcommitting. However, overcommitting can be nullified by undercommitted moves that occupy space to ward off or catch opponents coming in. One final side note to mention is, I'm sure that undercommitting aggressively has its own set of flaws to be exploited. Namely, the amount of volume it requires can lead to exhaustion, and eventually, the timing can be read. Though we never really got to that point in the Strickland fight due to Strickland's lack of undercommitting, which he should have continued to do to nullify the incoming blitz.